Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're not going to start with a person tonight, but with an animal, Sudan, one of the last three northern white rhinos left in the world, the last male. He was also the last northern white rhino to be born in the wild, and he has died at the age of 45. He had extensive leg wounds and arthritis, and he wasn't able to stand anymore, so he was euthanized in a Kenyan conservancy where he was kept under armed guard. They had guards with automatic weapons guarding Sudan. And this is a real pity because northern white rhinos once roamed all over Africa, but they're now endangered. Well, I guess they're more than endangered when there are only two left and they're both female because of poachers. Poachers would sell the horns of the northern white rhino on the black market for $50,000 a kilo, making him more valuable than either gold or cocaine. Sudan was born in 1973 and he was moved to the Kenyan Conservancy from a Czech zoo in 2009. The Kenyan Conservancy watched over him carefully and they really guarded him, as I said, with automatic weapons, and they tried to get him to reproduce with the two females, but it was unsuccessful. Now they have some of his genetic material, and they're going to try in vitro fertilization with the two females, Najin and Fatu. If the in vitro fertilization doesn't work, we've essentially seen the last of the northern white rhino, all because of poachers. Here is Zachary Mutai, who was Sudan's guardian in the Kenyan Conservancy.
My name is Zachary Mutai. I work for Alpecheta Conservancy as Northern White Rhino 8 keeper. I do love ultra wild animals, but my favorite one is a rhino. It's my passion. I know when they're happy, when they're nervous, and everything. Sudan is the last male of the northern white rhino. He is my favorite friend. He's the most gentle. If IVF succeed, then they will not get extinct. We might be lucky, we might be unsuccessful. But we are trying all means to see if we can save them.
The story of Sudan and the northern white rhino is the story of the good and bad in people. Well, we're going to move on now to Wayne Huizenga, who died recently at the age of 80. Wayne Huizenga was a major player in South Florida. He was a nice Dutch boy born here in the Chicago area, Evergreen Park, Timothy Christian High School. He moved down to South Florida, and he went on to found three companies that became Fortune 500 companies: Waste Management, Blockbuster, and AutoNation. In addition, he owned three major sports franchises in South Florida: the Miami Dolphins, the Florida Panthers, and the Florida Marlins. He won a World Series with the Florida Marlins. They beat the Indians in Game 7 in extra innings. That's the famous Jose Mesa blown save game in the ninth inning. And then he sold the team and they moved to Miami. Here's CBS Miami on Wayne Huizenga.
Wayne Huizenga was a South Florida sports icon, the visionary behind multi-billion-dollar businesses and South Florida sports franchises. CBS 4's Gary Nelson is live tonight in Fort Lauderdale with more on the impact he had on South Florida. Gary?
We're at Huizenga Plaza in Fort Lauderdale, one of many places, streets, buildings that bear the Huizenga name. He's had such an impact across this region. Interestingly enough, a college dropout who went on to become the only person in U.S. history to own three Fortune 500 companies. Huizenga, a billionaire, founded Waste Management Company in 1962 when he bought one used garbage truck for $5,000. He would go on to found Blockbuster Entertainment, later selling it for $8.5 billion. And he founded AutoNation, the largest car dealer in the nation. Huizenga, originally from Chicago, at one point in the 90s owned the Miami Dolphins, the then Florida Marlins, and the Florida Panthers. He was as generous as he was wealthy. The Huizenga Family Foundation gave millions, largely to programs benefiting children. He was a major supporter of Nova Southeastern University, who named its School of Business for him. Huizenga's Florida Marlins won the World Series in 1997. He took the Florida Panthers to the Stanley Cup Finals in 96. He once said his only regret was never winning a Super Bowl championship with the Dolphins. Huizenga's son says with all of his wealth, his father didn't know the meaning of greed.
He loved everybody and wanted to see everybody succeed. And most of all, he loved South Florida.
Boy, I'll tell you gotta love his Blockbuster deal. He sold it in the mid-90s for $8.5 billion, and 15 years later it was bankrupt. We're going to move on now to Augie Garrido, who died recently at the age of 79, one of the great college baseball coaches in history. He coached at Cal State Fullerton, turned it from a commuter school into a three-time national champion. and then he moved to the University of Texas, where he coached 20 years, won over 800 games, and another 2 national championships. Actually, between his 10 years at Cal State Fullerton, Texas, he spent a brief time at the University of Illinois, but in true Illinois fashion, the athletic director who brought him screwed up, got involved with a bunch of violations, had to leave, and Augie left a couple years later. Typical Illinois stuff. Here's Augie talking to a Texas audience late in his career with a little Zen baseball, but don't let that fool you. Augie can go full Bobby Knight and F them out with the best of them.
As everyone knows, winning is mandatory, and it creates a great deal of pressure for everyone involved with it unless you really get a realistic approach. And something you need to know about that is you must remove the winning from the process before your true genius will ever come out. And that's what we try to do here. And so the question is, how do we do it? And we help the players understand that we can't control the things around us, but we can control our response to them. And it's that response that we have that gives us self-control, whether it's me or whether it's you or whether it's anyone in the audience. The truth of the matter is, all we really have control over is ourselves. And so that's where we come from in our contribution to the educational process with the baseball team at the University of Texas. Fear itself is a very powerful and motivating force, but it leaves you lonely at the end of the day. And that's why if you can take the fear out of it, well, easy for me to say, well, not easy for me to do, the truth, or anyone to do. The truth of the matter is we control our fears. The fear is there and very necessary in our psyche, but we need to control the process that we go through to be able to understand that every failure is really a message that we need to know to reach and fulfill and exceed our highest goals. Our spirit will take us beyond our thoughts. Let it fly, man. Let it go. We practice to be perfect. It's unrealistic. When you play, you have to play to have fun. And you have to let your instincts and trust your instincts. And that's where that confidence comes in. And that's where it has to be fearless baseball. I work at a university where what starts here changes the world. But the truth of the matter is, that's what this audience is doing. And to all of you out there that are doing such a wonderful job in providing energy for the United States of America and the state of Texas, or maybe it's the Republic sometimes, I thank you and would invite you to a Longhorn game and come and see the boys play without fear and go after the relationships instead of the trophies.
Well, we're going to close tonight with Nokie Edwards, who died recently at the age of 82. Nokie Edwards was the lead guitarist for the Ventures, who are unquestionably the most popular rock and roll instrumental band ever. They're huge in the United States, huge internationally, and gods in Japan. Nokie Edwards was born Nolie Edwards. He was a nice Native American boy born in Oklahoma. He was a Cherokee, and he had the gift with a guitar. His family moved to Washington State, and he was playing for a while with Buck Owens, back up, before Buck Owens had the Buckaroos. And then he hooked up with Bob Bogle and Don Wilson. They had just formed a group that became the Ventures. Little Ventures trivia, the fourth member of the group was a guy named George Babbitt on drums. He became a 4-star general in the Air Force and actually played with them at a Ventures reunion in 1998. And now he was Nokie Edwards, maybe that was from his Oklahoma background. He was playing bass on their big 1960 hit Walk Don't Run. This put the Ventures on the map. I'm not going to play the 1960 version of Walk Don't Run because he was playing bass on it. And I covered Walk Don't Run extensively when we did the Johnny Smith podcast. He's the guy who originally wrote it as a jazz tune. You can check that podcast out. But Bob Bogle, who was playing lead guitar, was smart enough to know that this Nokie Edwards could really play, and he made him the lead guitarist. And I will play their remake in 1964 of Walk Don't Run, where Nokie Edwards is playing the lead guitar. A couple of my favorite Venture songs featuring Nokie Edwards. One of my favorites is a Christmas song, Sleigh Ride. Nothing says Christmas like a good surf guitar. move by Bob Bogle to let Nokie take over the lead. I'm not sure the Ventures would have become the big group they were if it wasn't for Nokie at lead guitar. I'll play a couple of covers. Here's Apache. Now this is originally done by the Shadows, the English instrumental group that's the only competition for the Ventures as the greatest rock and roll instrumental group. It was also done by Jorgen Ingman, but I think that Nokie Edwards does a pretty good job here. Like that little arrow thing he does with his guitar there. How about their cover of Telstar? In 1968, Nokie went out on his own to try a single career. It didn't work out. He wasn't on the Ventures classic recording of Hawaii 5-0 in 1969. There wasn't that much of a market for solo guitarists at that time, and he came back to the Ventures in 1973 and played with them for a while again. Later in life, he did a lot of solo work, and he did some pretty good ones. Here he plays Ghost Riders in the Sky. And I thought I'd play a Nokie Edwards tune for Sid. Here he covers Lennon and McCartney with 8 Days a Week. Nokie also wrote one famous song, Surf Rider, in 1963. Quentin Tarantino used the version done by the surf rock group The Lively Ones in Pulp Fiction. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. We're going to close tonight with the song that introduced the Ventures at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 2008. John Fogerty was the presenter. It's my favorite Ventures song. In fact, it's one of my favorite songs overall, and we've closed with it with a Linda Ronstadt vocal version before, but we got to play Nokie Edwards and the Ventures on Perfidia.
My name is Nokie Edwards. I'm the lead guitarist. Thank you. I'd like to thank Chet Atkins and Les Paul for their inspiration. And also, I'd like to thank the bands too, and I'd like to thank Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.